Good evening. Welcome to the Village Board Work Session for May 28th, 2024. It's 6:04 p.m. and we're in the Village Hall boardroom. Megan, would you please take roll call?
Trustee Wojka?
Here.
Trustee Banoski?
Hello.
Trustee Briggs?
Here.
Trustee Mishler?
Here.
Mayor Demeretz? Haley Cook?
Here. Okay, Trustee Banoski's going to do our land acknowledgement.
Before we begin this evening, we would like to recognize the Seneca Nation, on whose ancestral territory we are gathering. The present-day village of Fairport sits on traditional Seneca land. The Seneca Nation, with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. With respect, we acknowledge the people of the Seneca Nation, on whose land we now live. We honor their past, present, and future contributions to and stewardship of this land.
Thank you. So we're going to go right to new business. Our first item of new business is the Main Street Design Review discussion. And we have a guest, Dave Hastings from CPL, with us this evening. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you, everybody. All right, now we're cooking. Thank you, everybody. Good to be back. Last time we were in was October of last year, so we've made some progress. I have some updates. And I have a presentation. Can we pull up the presentation? Off-street parking, we're not going to be getting into off-street parking. The existing off-street parking will remain. The work on the canal lift bridge, as I had mentioned earlier, is not going to be part of this project, and the lift bridge lane is also what we're going to coordinate with to leave that work as it is. So the next part of this presentation is expanding on the scope of work that is included in the project. We've been working our way through early design phases, and we have some project design elements that we'd like to put in front of you. It's really going to be focusing on the fixtures and materials that we're going to be using to make this corridor aesthetically pleasing. And with this, I'll hand it over to Dick.
Do I have to hold that, or just get, okay. Everybody can hear me, I think, yeah, okay, thanks. I'm on a borrowed laptop here, so bear with me. So I'm a landscape architect, and my focus is the streetscape elements, things like pavements and trees and tree grates and ornamental pavements and furnishings and amenities. All these things contribute to the site aesthetic, and if we do that right, it'll really be a memorable corridor, an interesting and memorable corridor. So we're going to hit on a lot of these elements very briefly. Just to start out, I see. Okay, this is a different program. So there are actually 5 different zoning districts within our corridor. The top bar there shows the southern half of our project limits, and the bottom screenshot is the northern half of our project area. And within our project area, there's portions of a business district, landing development district, canal district, industrial district, and a residential district. For our purposes, we were thinking that we'd create sort of a topology for the residential zone and for the business zone. So starting out with pavements, what you have now are mostly brushed concrete. You can see there's no, what we've been calling a buffer strip between the main walking corridor and the curb. That's just all one area of pavement interrupted by 4x4 tree pits. There's very little of anything else other than concrete. Here's an example of some other ornamental pavements in the park by the canal. On the right, you can see this is regular brushed concrete. This is what we call exposed on concrete, where when the concrete is still wet, the cement is partially washed off to expose the aggregate, and it creates kind of a nice ornamental look. And on the left here these are concrete unit pavers meant to look like brick. So all of those are potentially on the table, things we could do for that pavement buffer strip and in other select areas. Here's some example of real brick pavers that are along the way, but mostly it's concrete. And it's about 10 feet of concrete and about a 4x6 grid. Here in front of the Village Hall, you can see there's a little bit more areas of unit pavers. So we'll be, potentially looking to do things like that, especially for the pavement buffer. Next up, let's see here if I wanted to.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the purpose of that to just tie in what is already existing then?
The purpose of showing you the existing.
The different types of concrete that you had presented in some of the places that we already have it.
Right, yeah. We anticipate that it'll all be demolished to make way for new pavements. And we haven't gotten yet to the proposal, but
Okay.
we're getting there.
Okay.
So in this picture, yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so here we have 4 different conceptual plan views of a typical sidewalk. The top one, we're showing 50-foot trees spaced at 50 feet apart, which would be big ones like honey locusts. The middle, the second from the top shows the spacing of smaller trees, and then the third one down is very small trees such as serviceberry. The point is that the street lighting and the spacing of the street lighting and the trees is sort of integral, and they're typically on the same spacing. So if we have trees at 50 feet apart, we'd probably have street lights at 50 feet apart, so that the lanterns don't conflict with the canopies. We're also showing here, it's kind of tough to see at this distance, but we've shown a buffer strip, a 2-foot buffer strip between the curb and the sidewalk, and there are lots of options for that. We were thinking possibly a textured concrete with maybe a color agent added as a release agent to impart a little bit of color to just distinguish it a little bit from the brushed concrete. There are other options too, like stamped concrete, and of course cobbles or unipavers. There are a lot of different things that can be done. But one thing that's sort of rising to the top is this textured concrete with the color added via the release agent, because this is something that can be done readily by in-house forces, and it's easy to duplicate the color. Digging in a little bit further here, if we choose to use a structural soil, can't really see it here, but there's a recommended amount of soil volume that each tree should have based on its tree canopy. And for obvious reasons, big trees require more soil. So if we were to plant a sidewalk with honey locusts, such as the ones in front of Village Landing, we would plant those at about 50 feet on center, and the whole sidewalk would really have to be the base for all of the sidewalk would have to be structural soil to really support the growing for those trees. Yeah, structural soil was invented at Cornell University about 20 years ago, and it's simply a crushed stone base for pavements that also allows for a lot of porosity and for roots to grow. And so the big advantage is that it allows roots to grow underneath pavements without heaving up slabs and causing damage to curbing and pavements. So it allows for root growth while not compromising the base material for the pavement. And it's widely used and embraced by designers because it protects pavements and it improves the growing environment for trees. So let me go back here. All right, we talked about the pavement buffer strip, curbing. Yeah. Dave already pointed out, most of your curbing is granite curbing, which is what we would recommend. It's durable and it looks good, and likely a lot of it could be salvaged. So we're not recommending any change to that. All of your pavement, you can see granite curbing here in different areas. Detectable warning strips are another element. These are required by law to be placed at the bottom of every curb ramp. They feature little dimples that alert people that they're about to enter a vehicular zone. And what you currently have are, well, mostly what you have are composite mats that are stapled down to the pavement like this, and that is an easy way to do it, but there are other ways that are a little more durable and look better. These are such as these, which are iron plates that are put down, and these can be cut to different radii, and this is probably the preferred method.
Yeah, with all the new sidewalk ramp construction that we're going to be doing, the preference for most new projects, New York State DOT really pushes it as well, is using the cast iron detectable warning units. They turn rusty over time and creates a nice look, which really matches with a lot of the Fairport artwork that was installed on the Lift Bridge Lane projects and the signs in front of Village Hall. And they're far more durable than the composite plastic ones that are out there now. So one of the other things that we're going to be looking at that we've discussed with the design team is making sure that as we're putting this project out, that we're specifying any ramps that are out on a radii that we're getting specifically the radial cast iron detectable units so that they look nice when they get installed.
Another element that we're going to look at are crosswalks. You have a few different types of crosswalks right now in the project area. This one, which I might call a ladder, a painted ladder, that occurs in a bunch of places. This one, I guess, is gone now, but this is an example of a more decorative crosswalk with, looks like granite edging and unipavers. And here's one with just horizontal bars, but we would probably look to standardize this.
Yeah, there's guidance from New York State Department of Transportation about appropriate striping treatments for crosswalks, whether it's controlled meaning that traffic has to come to a stop, so at stop signs or at signalized intersections, versus uncontrolled crossings. There's a few mid-block crossings where traffic doesn't normally have to stop, other than by law, they have to stop for pedestrians. So we're going to be looking at doing enhanced high visibility crosswalk striping and signage for those locations.
Next up is light poles. So there are a couple different types of lights that exist now in the corridor. This is what I would call a lantern-style luminaire. This exists in many places. It's equipped with attachments for flags and hanging pots and banners. And you can see that this quite a few places along the corridor. And then there's also this, which I would call sort of a gooseneck luminaire. And I understand that this is the standard that the village is moving towards. So this is what would probably be proposed by the designers of the lighting system. This one here has two heads, and you can see how it's equipped for banners. So no, we're not proposing any change from that.
Yeah, when it comes to the street lighting, we're in coordination with the Fairport Municipal Corporation. We're coordinating with them on design, making sure that the lighting that gets installed, that we're accommodating their design with our project. So they're doing the design and we're accommodating it. So the light fixtures that are installed on the Lift Bridge Lane projects are where we're defaulting to, but we are keeping our eyes open in discussions with the Fairport Municipal Corporation about potential other options.
Moving on to street signs, there's a hierarchy exists with the existing signs. The business avenue signs have a little more ornamentation and detail. And then as you move out, things get a little simpler as you move into the residential district. And that makes a lot of sense to us, and we're gonna propose a similar hierarchy of street signs. We reached out to a company called Signature Streetscapes, and they put together a pretty quick proposal here. On the left, you see what might be done in the what we're calling the business zone, and on the right, what might be done in the residential zone. And the the business zone signs could be a little bit taller, and they might feature the Fairport logo to just give them a little bit of richness and character. And you can see how things like stop signs could be framed and included on those poles.
Yeah, so the signs themselves have to be MUTCD compliant. That's federal regulations. But there is leeway with the color of the signs. There is also leeway with being able to implement customization with the Fairport logo at the top of the signs at whatever that little top part is called. I'm sure Dick knows.
Finial.
Finial, yeah, I knew it had a name. And like what's shown up here on the stop sign, something that's coming out and making things look a little more modern, which is completely within the regulations of allowable installations, is a frame around the stop signs. It's just a little thing like that that helps it stand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then within the downtown business district, we can make sure we get larger, more substantial signposts that give it a little more presence with some decorative treatments at the base.
Yeah, there are lots of different ways these can be customized, including the decorative bases, and the poles can be fluted. There's lots of different fun things that you can do with the signs. Moving on to tree pits. So the trees and the tree pits are causing a lot of damage to pavement throughout the corridor. I'm just going to run through a few examples here, and you can see how because there's no structural soil, the roots are experiencing some resistance. The roots will always take the path of least resistance when they grow, and so if they can't find anywhere to grow, then oftentimes they end up pushing pavements and curbing, and that's what's happening here. There's example after example. You can see where the roots are causing havoc. Here, that's a pretty pronounced trip hazard there, and you can see. I mean, you've got about 6 inches of curb here, and then maybe 5 inches of exposed concrete slab there. So that's a dangerous situation. And this you can see again and again and again, where the tree roots are exposed at the surface. And I think what's happening here, it's not that the trees were planted too high. I think the roots just had nowhere to go to the side or down, and so they sort of worked their way up. And this is not a good situation for trees. It's not a healthy environment for the trees, and you can see it again and again. Heaving pavements and exposed roots. Here's apparently these tree pits at one time were paved over with unipavers. That's an option for tree pits. This is what happens oftentimes when you use pavers. So what we're recommending is either rubber. This is a good example of some of the problems. What we're recommending is probably poured rubber tree pits or tree grates. The City of Rochester uses a product called FlexiPave for their tree pits. It's basically recycled tires, and it's a sort of a fluid material, and you pour it into the tree pit, and it spreads easily. And what it does is it provides a mulching layer for the tree, and it helps hold moisture for the tree. It helps keep debris and cigarette butts and things out from underneath tree guards, and people can walk on it. It really is an agreeable material. A couple of pictures of here with the poured rubber being installed, and it's also forgiving. So you can basically pour it right up to the tree trunk, and as the tree grows, so the rubber allows it to do so. Oftentimes with tree grates, you see where sometimes they're supposed to be, over time, concentric rings are supposed to be removed to make more room for the tree, and what often happens is they forget to remove the rings, and the tree sort of grows into the tree grate. So, this is a recommendation. This is a good product. I think you should consider using this for your tree grates. The other option, obvious option, is tree grates. They come in a lot of different sizes. What we're recommending is 4x6 tree pits for the health of the tree, and tree grates come in 4x6. A lot of different designs. They can be iron or they can be composite, and they look nice. Sort of a traditional look. But they have a few problems. I think in some places they're being stolen for the metal to be scrapped, and often what can happen is garbage and stuff can get underneath the grate and it becomes difficult to remove, so it can become sort of unsightly. And they require a little maintenance to make sure that they're wide enough to accommodate the tree trunk. But that's certainly another good option. You can walk on them, and they allow water to percolate through, and they can be designed to accommodate uplights. And just to note that they can be, plastic, and they lightweight, and a lot of different options for tree grades. Yeah.
This one's pretty cool because it's showing some puck lights that are installed, so it kind of shines up on the tree. When we saw this picture, when they showed it to us, we got really excited, like, oh, this could be a cool thing we were talking about. When we lose some of these bigger trees to this project, we're also used to having the really nice white lights on the trees throughout the winter and spring months, and it looks great. And I hate to lose that until the trees get big enough and they grow over time. And so we had talked about, and we're trying to see if there's options to maybe do some uplighting of some sorts, whether it be a puck light or something else. We're looking at costs, and there's a significant challenge. But if that could be something we could do, hopefully the board maybe could consider something like that, because it would look really nice shining on those trees at night, seeing everything really uniform and clean and so forth, year round and so forth. So.
Yeah, and as part of the lighting design, we're going to be working with the guys over there at Fairport Electric about not just street lighting, but looking for opportunities for accent lighting through the corridor. It's something that we're still exploring. We're in the early stages of it, but uplighting for the trees is an obvious opportunity for accent lighting. The other thing I want to mention is the treatments that we're going over today. The very first point that Dick got into is the corridor has different treatments. It's not one cohesive. It's not one treatment through the entire corridor. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we're looking at opportunities where we can implement some of these in targeted locations through the corridor. We don't necessarily have to do one treatment for tree grates or hardscape through the entire corridor.
Yeah, exactly. Where you have, like, such as in the residential zone, where you might move towards tree lawns instead of a paved buffer strip. At that point, it might be appropriate to go towards mulched tree pits with some sort of edging between the lawn and the mulch.
If we went with the rubber, the poured rubber, would uplighting be an option? Or
Yes.
it is an option with that as well? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You can pour that rubber right around the luminaire. Okay.
So if they're lightweight and plastic, then people aren't going to be scrapping.
So trees.
That woman holding the grill, they're not going to be stealing them to scrap them. It's plastic.
We examined all the trees in the corridor. I forget how many, over 50. And unfortunately, there's pretty compelling reasons to recommend removal of a lot of the trees. And we have a full report that we can share with you, key to a map where you can see where every tree is along the corridor, what the species is, what the size is, what the conditions are, and what our recommended action is. And for a lot of reasons we've already discussed, pavement heaving and damage to curbing and pavement, that's a big one. But there are other issues too, like this tree, this canopy looks like it's, half dead. This is a tree that's, probably growing, probably too big a tree for the space allowed to it. It's growing into the building. This is it's a nice looking honey locust. I don't know why that one is in here. This tree is growing into the building. That's not a good condition for the tree or the building. Here's the tree. You can see that the trunk has sustained major damage, and it's really not worth trying to save that tree. It's just start over. Here's a tree where half of it's gone. the same tree. It had lost a major leader. And here's an example of a tree in a tree lawn. I think this is one of the ones we recommended that could be saved. But I don't think we have the time. Here's an example of a tree growing into the wires above on Main Street on the east side, north of the canal. There's a lot of overhead wires there, and that's a tough place for trees. We'd want to pick really small ones that would conflict the least with overhead wires. Here's an example of a tree in the wires. It doesn't look good when you have to top them and cut this big void in them. I think it's better to just plant a smaller tree. And here's an example of pavement heaving. I don't think we have the time to go into this today, but
And I'll follow up one more thing in the evaluation of the existing trees. Dick went out and looked at every single one of them, took notes, made pictures. We put together an entire report. One of the other important characteristics that we were looking at was if there is the occasional tree that might happen to be in good shape. It's like a long line of honey locusts. There's that one that maybe could remain. This is a transformative street project that we're looking to install. So with it is the design considerations for the future project. So we do have to look at retaining trees that don't conflict with the goals for the larger project.
that's right. And we know so much more now about different types of tree species. Things like Norway maple were commonly planted, 20 years ago, and now it's considered an undesirable plant and an invasive species. So there are a lot of, I hate to recommend cutting down trees, but there are a lot of really compelling reasons to do that, especially when you're investing in new pavements and everything else. So this is a list of the Village of Fairport Master Tree List, which I marked up a little bit. And I would encourage the village to revisit this list. There's stuff on it that I don't think should be on it. And for example, Acer griseum, that's a paper bark maple. That's a great tree for your front yard, but it's not an appropriate tree for a streetscape. It's more finicky about urban conditions and pollution and heat gain. And I wouldn't put it on a street tree list. All of these malus, that's crab apples, they can work in the streetscape, but sometimes they're wider than they are tall, and all of them create fruit, which can be a litter problem. Acer platanoides, that's Norway maple, that's now considered an invasive plant. It's even on a list put out by New York State of plants that you really shouldn't be specified. And then in addition to plants on this list that I don't really think belong, there are a whole bunch of other missing trees. So this is sort of the beginnings of a tree palette that we would recommend that we use for the project.
So yeah, we really wanted to approach this with starting with the list of trees that the Fairport Tree Board has published. But with Dick's experience as a licensed landscape architect, we wanted to make sure that we approach this with some recommendations that maybe go beyond this list. So it'll be a conversation to continue to be had.
Yeah. Other things like green ash and all ash now are susceptible to emerald ash borer. It's nearly wiped out ash everywhere, so you would never specify ash today. So we have this report. It's a 60-page report. All of the trees in the corridor were assessed and with recommendations given.
Yeah. So I have a PDF copy of that I'll be sharing with the village that can be shared internally, and for anybody in the public that is curious as to the reasons why we have identified the trees to be removed. The purpose of this report is to supply that backup so that we don't have to go explain every tree to each person. We have it documented in the report.
Next up is an easy one, benches. This is do more forget the number, do more 58. There are a bunch of these in the corridor, and they are in good shape, and they're pretty new, and there's no reason to stray from them. So we would recommend that the village stick with this bench. There's a backless version of it here, which is the Do More 106. Both are comfortable. You can see it's contoured. It's rugged. It's a decent bench. This one, however, in this can, seems to be from 2 vintages ago, probably. This one we would recommend that you scrap. There's another example of that Do More 58. At bench pads, you definitely would want to anchor all of your amenities. Trash receptacles and benches should be anchored, and it's problematic to do that on pavers. This is just an example of that. Probably better to locate benches on concrete than they can be easily anchored, like in this situation here. And here is a trash receptacle, Do More 84. This is a good complement to this Do More bench, and we recommend that the village continue using this bench. And I understand that some are being painted black to match the benches, which is a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah, so the existing trash receptacles that are out there, if they're in good shape and can be cleaned up, painted, put back into service, that'll be great. As part of the project, we'll be looking at locations where we can install new benches, more trash receptacles as appropriate, and supplement.
Here's another example of that bench that we recommend that you move away from. Trash receptacles, we just hit on that Do More 84. They're currently brown, but they can be painted black to match the benches. It looks like I think it's a aesthetically pleasing trash receptacle, and if the village likes it, I don't see any reason to move away from it.
Yeah, it'll keep a cohesive design through the corridor with the benches, trash receptacles, street light poles, the street signs. Nice black finish on a lot of these makes for a modern, clean look.
Yeah, I always like black. So recycling stations, there's a couple of these. This is also a Do More product. I think these can be, cleaned up and reused if there's a need for them. I think there are 2 that I saw in the project corridor. Bike racks, there really isn't much within the corridor. There's a few of these inverted U's, and we thought that bike racks might be a good opportunity for some custom, maybe some laser cut iron or something with neat artwork where space allows. If you want to get smaller, daintier ones in and a tighter space, things like rings could be put in. Lots of different options for bike racks. There's the old traditional kind beyond that interpretive sign. I wouldn't recommend that. You can see this palette of materials on the canal is pretty similar to what exists on Main Street. That Do More bench, that Do More trash receptacle, all that stuff looks to be in pretty good shape. Interpretive signage. So there's a few different things happening. There's 5 or 6 of these things, which I think are fantastic. They're very informative and fun to read. These are anchored. I think we would simply remove them and re-anchor them in very locations close to where they now are, unless it makes sense to move them. There's this. We're thinking this sign could probably stay in place and we could just pour concrete around it, but no reason to get rid of that. There's also a few of these old New York State, look like these DOT interpretive signs, so they can be relocated. So not any major changes we're proposing for that. Just a few more things here, interactive elements. The thinking is it would be fun if we could introduce some interactive elements along the corridor that would enrich the pedestrian experience, something like as simple as this. You know, there's this big sign with a barcode, and you can scan that code with your phone and get more information about points of interest in the village, or here you can scan this thing and find out more about festivals and events in the village. That seems like a program that could be expanded upon. We talked to Do More, and the bench that, let's see here, the Do More 58 can be easily retrofitted with a little plaque here. So the existing benches you have, if you wanted to introduce some sort of program of interpretive elements, you could simply attach little plaques with a barcode to your existing benches. This is something that they've done on their wood benches. This is a stainless steel plaque, and so it could, it could be moments in the history of Fairport, or important figures in Fairport, or lots of different things. We thought some opportunities, not just the benches, repeating elements along the corridor are opportunities for some sort of program, such as light poles or pavers. We could engrave pavers. And we thought this would be a logical place where coordination with a village historian would make a lot of sense. Try to seize on some interesting things from Fairport's history, and also perhaps the poetry program, and capitalize on Tree City, USA.
Yeah, so that's really like one of the fun elements of this project that we've been playing around with on the design team. This is a statement project for the Village of Fairport, and it's really going to be transformative. And rather than just have it be any ordinary transportation project, we're looking for opportunities to make this an amenity for the community. So interactive elements like Dick was talking about, information on the trees where they can link back to a website. As we're reaching out to the public through public outreach processes, we're going to be soliciting some feedback and opinions, potentially even ideas, which is a good segment into the next section on our project schedule. So tasks that have been completed to date. We've been working on this project for about a year now. It might not seem like a lot has been done, but this is listing a chunk of the work that we've had to get through. With this being a federally funded project administered by New York State Department of Transportation, there's a lot of regulations we have to follow. Right off the get-go, we had to start working our way through the environmental impacts. So the environmental classifications, environmental documentation. We had to put together our research on the historic properties in the corridor, send our reports into the State Historic Preservation Office, determine that basically the whole point of that is to determine if this project is expected to have an impact on historic properties. With this project being limited to the curb line to the highway boundary, it was found to have no adverse effects. So that cleared us to keep moving forward with the project. We had to look at the endangered species, get approvals for the complete streets and the federal environmental approvals worksheet. We looked at the crash data. We had to do the analysis for that to satisfy the NISDOT requirements, NISDOT being New York State DOT. The right-of-way process has been a process. So as part of this project, we met early on with New York State DOT. In order to administer the funds, they want to make sure that the project can be built within the highway boundary as it is, or acquire easements or property acquisitions. So we took a look early on in the project at where the highway boundary was, identified locations through the corridor where we might have a challenge to get the sidewalk ramps and sidewalk constructed within the highway boundary. We've met with New York State DOT on multiple occasions to discuss where easements may be required and where we can get by without easements. There is a process where you can get grading release from the property owner. If there's work that would benefit the project to be done beyond the highway boundary but isn't a necessity of the project to be completed, we can pursue that work through grading release with the property owner, which is a much simpler, straightforward, and inexpensive process. So we identified there were 9 easements through the corridor that required, or 9 properties in the corridor that required an easement. They were mostly corner takings where the highway boundary comes to a point at the intersection, and to make an ADA compliant sidewalk ramp, we were going to need a little bit more room to work with. So we've been working through the process with New York State DOT. We prepared the abstract request maps. We're currently in the process of getting the right-of-way maps approved. Once those right-of-way maps are approved, New York State DOT is going to be administering the acquisition process, which is a major benefit to the village. It's much less expensive for New York State Department of Transportation to do the right-of-way process. A big reason being they have the power of eminent domain, so it just speeds the process along. The corner takings are really just a couple of feet at the corners just to make room for them. They're permanent easements. So once they have the right-of-way maps, they're going to go to securing abstracts and do the appraisals, assess fair market value, and ensure that the property owners are going to be paid fair market value for the easements that we need for the project. All of this is a time-consuming, months-long process. From the start, New York State DOT had told us it's about a 10-month process to work through right-of-way. So we got started early, and that has been a big chunk of the last couple months. The key thing that needs to be accomplished is that we need to have all of the right-of-way in hand before we can let the project. In order to apply the funds to the contract for construction, you need to have right-of-way clearance. So that's the big hurdle that we're pushing through now. Coinciding with that process, we've been working through the preliminary design. The New York State DOT process for locally administered federal aid projects is that you have to work through preliminary design, put together into one comprehensive design approval document, everything that we've been working on. So the design, as we've worked up to date, all of the environmental work that we had to do, traffic work, the right-of-way process, all of this needs to get compiled into one design approval document, which we just got finished working up through this spring. So that went through. We have officially received design approval, and we're authorized to advance into detailed design at this stage. So that's everything to get us up to the point now. The next slide is going to talk about next steps. So from here, we're proceeding into the next steps are stakeholder outreach. We have on our team as a sub-consultant Highland Planning. They're helping us with the stakeholder outreach and public engagement. The Fairport Parrington Merchants Association and the Fairport Parrington Partnership, we've reached out to them, and we've scheduled a joint meeting to present to them the project, solicit some feedback, and inform them on where things stand with the project. So that meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, June 4th. We're going to try to carry the momentum. Question?
Will it be different than this meeting?
It will be a lot of the same content, but I will try to speak more to their concerns. It's going to be a lot of the same materials. We're going to pull some of it out that doesn't matter to them. Try to keep it focused on what they're going to want to know about. Next steps from that, besides reaching out to the merchants associations, is really reaching out to the public in general. So we're working on trying to set a date for public outreach, which we're going to go the format of a public open house. We're hoping to host it here at Village Hall. We're going to work with the village to spread the word. Once the date gets set, we're going to try to get the information out there. Our team is going to prepare materials to present to the public in an easy to understand and digest format. We're going to be looking for some input on some of the materials that we're trying to make design decisions on. As you can tell, the scope is limited on this project. There's only so much we can do within the constraints of the funding and the space. But there are some design decisions, such as material choices, that we would like to get some input on. So we want to present the information that we have to the project, and then also present the opportunities that we're looking for input on. Through the public outreach process, we're trying to reach out to the merchants and the public, but more specifically, there's a few property owners along the corridor that we want to reach out and talk to specifically. I had mentioned earlier that there are some driveway aprons that are clearly unused, are a real candidate for removal. So before we just do that, we need to talk to the property owners and find out, how they're using their property, talk to them more about what the project impacts are to them. So we're going to be looking to identify those locations and reach out to them individually. Utility coordination is going to be a big part of this. We are preparing to have a utility outreach meeting. We're going to reach out to all the utilities that have infrastructure through the corridor, let them know about where the project design stands, what it involves. We have an idea of the utilities that are out there, but we really need them to look at the project and identify how their facilities would be impacted. And if they have any future plans for upgrades and replacements, try to coordinate them doing that work prior to this project coming in. We really want to try to minimize any construction work that comes in after our project. So now's the time to do utility coordination. Railroad, that one is a beast. Fortunately, Brian's done some legwork for us. The railroad has priority over all right-of-way on all projects. It just goes back to the origins of transportation. So our project passes over the railroad. As we've been looking at it, we really want to try to work with the railroad company rather than fight them about trying to replace the infrastructure up to the tracks. You can probably tell it's pothole city at the railroad tracks just because it's a lot easier to just do your work up to their property line and not on it, because they make it very onerous to do any improvements within their right-of-way. So we're hopeful that we can get a hold of the right people and make some progress on being able to replace the sidewalk ramps and put detectable warning up to the railroad tracks, because the end of the sidewalk is technically within the railroad's right of way as it is. So if we want to make improvements to it, we need to get permits and authorization in order to do that work. Yeah.
So it's just like the railroad has control over what, if you were to look on the street, just that part doesn't extend any further north or south?
Their right-of-way is typically 30 feet from the center of the railroad tracks, which extends quite a bit. That's why if you might not notice because you just drive the streets all the time, but there's a paving joint where there was fresh pavement installed, and then there's old pavement up to the tracks, and that's a pretty good indication of where their right-of-way line is, because the New York State DOT, the village, it's a challenge to do paving up to the tracks. Yeah. So just the location of their highway boundary being 30 feet back from the tracks, we really don't want to leave a large gap in the project where the railroad tracks is. One of the objectives of this project is to try to make it a pedestrian-friendly corridor. With all the development that's going on within the village, there's often a complaint of parking. And one of the objectives of this project is to try to utilize the parking that's already out here, to make it a better environment, to find an open parking spot in a lot that might be further from the destination that you're trying to get to. But with the streetscape improvements, hopefully it'll make it more inviting. You'll want to park anywhere you can get a spot, and you'll know that getting out and walking is desirable. And working with the railroad is really important, because we don't want to leave a scar through the middle of the project. We're going to be looking to try to make it cohesive all the way through. Continued coordination with New York State Department of Transportation is also going to be an important part of this. As I mentioned, the right-of-way process is only partway through. It's a month-long process. We have to make sure that it continues to progress. We can't let the project for bidding until we have the right-of-way in hand. So we really have to work with them and make that a priority. That's one of the critical path items. New York State Department of Transportation, as you're aware, is doing the Thomas Creek culvert replacement. So the way things ended up working out, that was originally scheduled to go to construction this summer, with our project next summer. But their project has officially been pushed to next summer. So our projects are going to overlap construction. So where we were just trying to coordinate our project meeting up with their project and make sure our designs matched up, we're now going to have to make sure that construction teams don't overlap. They are going to have a completely separate project, separate contractors, separate everything. Our project is going to be coming in behind them. So it went from a small amount of coordination to a lot of coordination. We got to make sure these things line up. And then an additional element of coordination with New York State Department of Transportation is we don't have control over all of the design decisions for this project. As I had mentioned, the village owns and maintains the roadway up to about the railroad tracks. North of the railroad tracks is actually owned and maintained by the Department of Transportation. So they are administering the funds on this project, but coincidentally, the portion of the roadway that they own and maintain, any design decisions that get made have to be approved by the Department of Transportation. The contractor that's going to be coming in and doing the work has to obtain a highway work permit from the DOT to do any work on that section of the roadway. So as we're looking at crosswalks and signage and striping and curb ramp upgrades, all of that has to get reviewed and approved by New York State Department of Transportation. Within the village portion of the roadway, we have more flexibility because ultimately the approving agency is the village. So working with New York State is going to be important on the north end.
Okay, just so I'm clear, so on the south end of the project, the village we maintain it and all of that, we can make our own decisions. But after the 30 feet on the north side past the past the railroad, that is owned and maintained by the DOT?
Yes. Yeah, so they, so the maintenance agreement through the corridor is split as such. I found it curious that it didn't end at the village line, but not unusual. I've been in lots of municipalities where it winds up being this way. This isn't unusual by any means, but it is something that we have to work with. So they're really easy to work with. Transportation design on a basic level is really easy to implement, but as we're doing all of this design, we have to go through that extra level of review and coordination to make sure that they're okay with all of the design decisions being made.
I wouldn't
Because
I wouldn't get stressed out about it up there or anything. I mean, to where the project's not gonna,
curious.
I know, yeah. No, it's valid. We've been working with them from day one. They've seen everything we're doing to date. They understand the elements we've looked at. We've talked about some crazy things with them. They understand our challenges. They understand we want to make a nice crossing at Liftbridge Lane East and West and Main Street, and our design team's working on that as well. So I think it's just an additional layer and process of facilitation that we have to do. But I think the projects will be very cohesive, and I think DOT, outside of something really significant and crazy, like painting the sidewalks pink or something, they're going to go along with whatever the recommendations are. I feel strongly about that. A lot of the DOT reps that we're working with live in the Village of Fairport. They understand the needs. They understand what's going on here. They understand what we're trying to do. And I think they're going to be working collaboratively with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not too concerned about it. We're looking at some improvements through that section that are an obvious benefit. Where we run into some challenges is the Village OSED did a parking and mobility study that Passero completed. We've been reviewing that as part of our project. We're trying to take in as much information as we can. Some of the recommendations I can tell would be challenging to implement, such as putting a mid-block crossing from the parking lot on the east side of Main Street to the cannery is so close to the signalized intersection that NISDOT's going to be hard pressed to approve a mid-block crossing at that location. So we've been taking in the information and trying to have a dialogue and look for opportunities to implement things that can be an improvement to the corridor. So those are the types of challenges that we run into working with NISDOT. We have to make sure that they're okay with whatever we suggest. So the overall schedule in terms of calendar, we just got approval for advancing into detailed design. We're going to be working through all of the next steps that I had mentioned as part of the detailed design process over the summer and fall, public outreach, utility coordination, NISDOT. The schedule has us advertising for bid in late fall. The right-of-way process is going to play into that, and then the schedule with completing the design. But everything's on track for this schedule as it is. And that, that puts us in for construction in 2025. If we can get a bid in late fall prior to the end of the year, the contractor, we should be able to get through all the contract execution, and the contractor can start doing submittals, and they can be ready to do construction as soon as the weather breaks in the spring of 2025. And that's all the material I have to present. I open it to any general questions that you may have.
I have questions.
Sure.
Thank you so much for all this information. This is really, this is great. This is super exciting. I know it's a lot of hard work, and I appreciate all this information. So when you were talking about replacing a lot of the concrete spaces with grass spaces, would it be just grass? Would it be native plants? Would it be like little rain gardens? Like, what is the potential for those spaces? Or has it not gotten that far yet?
Well, we haven't identified the exact areas where tree lawns might be proposed. We were thinking that those would be restricted to the residential zones on the north end and the south end of the project. And then in the main core of the project, we would probably pave right up to the curb to accommodate, parallel parking and people just moving, across the curb.
Yeah, one of the things to remember about this corridor is we're kind of breaking it up into zones. Frankly, it's not a consistent curb to curb width through the corridor either. On the north end and south end, you have 32 feet from curb to curb. It's a consistent 66 feet of right-of-way, from right-of-way line to right-of-way line. And the sidewalk is very consistently 32.5 feet to the back edge of the sidewalk from the center line of the roadway. So in those sections where the curb-to-curb width is narrower, you have a really big tree lawn. And those are generally in the areas on the north and south end where it's more residential. So those would be the areas where it would make the most sense to install grass, which they are grass now. Really where we run into an excess of concrete is where the curb width widens out. There's on-street parking on each side. So as Dick mentioned, we have to be strategic with where we're identifying areas that can be have concrete removal and turned into a greenscape. Whether there's on-street parking or not, we want to make sure that it's usable. But as we advance into the project, we'll start identifying locations where we could do landscape treatments similar to what's in front of the Lifford Lane West. It's a green area, but it's really a planting bed area with some decorative plants in it. We see that there's opportunities to do more.
Awesome. Okay, next question. I know you spoke about connecting Liffbridge Lane east to Liffbridge Lane west because it's a biking corridor. What, do you know what that is potentially gonna look like? Like, is it gonna be with paint or?
Yeah, we're still in the early stage of that design. That one's a tough nut to crack. There's no obvious solution to that one. So we've been bouncing around a few different ideas of what we can do for the treatment for there. In our preliminary design plans, we did lay out what I would call an acceptable solution, which is basically striping a painted bike lane across the intersection. So north of that intersection right now, there is a striped pedestrian crosswalk. As it is, the cycle track on Liffbridge Lane West comes to the intersection with Main Street and just terminates. And with the project going on Liffbridge Lane East, where there is no cycle track, the bike lanes are going to be in the travel lanes on each side of the street. That really presents a challenge because we have to go from a cycle track to a separated bike lanes on the in the travel lanes. So the current plan as it is, which we're still exploring alternative options, is when you're on Liffbridge Lane East, heading west towards Liffbridge Lane West, you're going to be on the north side of the roadway, and that's where the cycle track is, so it makes sense to just carry right up. On Liffbridge Lane West, heading east, the shoulder is really wide in that section of the road. There's no parking allowed. So it seemed to make sense to have the cyclist reach the intersection with Main Street, head south for the width of the intersection to get them to the south side of the intersection, and then provide a painted crossing there, which gets them to Liffbridge Lane East on the side of the road that they're supposed to be on. Not optimal, but it's tough for a solution that really works with the intersection. So as we get into detailed design, we're going to continue to explore options. There's a lot of things that factor into it. We're looking at ways to change the aesthetic of the intersection, which helps it stand out. So the problem now is with the lift bridge rises and traffic backs up and they block the intersection, and we've all seen it. The traffic is partially stopped and cyclists are coming through, and now they're weaving in between vehicles, and it's really not an optimal, not a safe condition. How do we solve that? No obvious answer. So we're going to look for solutions. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm describing it, but I did have it. Yeah. So this is the design that we put forward to the Department of Transportation with no objections from them. So this is what I would consider an acceptable solution. It's a little awkward because you have to ask the cyclist to basically come to a stop, transition down. You're going to be getting cyclists. If this is the treatment that we end up installing, if we can't come up with a solution that is better, there's going to be cyclists that just travel on a diagonal across the intersection, and maybe that is the right treatment rather than try to fight the cyclists. Let's work with them and put the bike lane where it's supposed to be. These are designs that we're going to be exploring further. But as I was saying about the intersection really being a challenge with traffic, when the lift bridge is up and traffic is coming to a stop, the preference is really for vehicles to not block the intersection. So what treatments can we install that help encourage traffic to stop short of the intersection when clearly they can't go any further? Let's not block the intersection for the pedestrians and cyclists who should be able to continue using it safely. So as we advance further, we'll keep exploring and try to put some designs forward that work for the village.
Cool. That intersection is extremely tricky. As a cyclist, it is amazingly dangerous, and asking a cyclist to cross the street in front of traffic seems a little far-fetched. I would never ever consider doing that as a safe move, even if there was striping. But it's, it's an idea.
Right, yeah, and cyclists are the exact kind of people that we want to get some feedback from on the treatments here. I'm a cyclist myself, and I think about, when I'm riding a canal and encounter a situation like this, what would I want to be doing?
Right.
I certainly don't want to be weaving through traffic if I can help it. But yeah, it's a multifaceted problem. It's trying to get cyclists lined up with the two sides of Lift Bridge Lane, and then the inevitable traffic backup when Lift Bridge is up.
Okay, I'm almost done with questions.
I love them.
And I'm assuming the type of trees that you recommend is in that tree, that long 60-page tree document in terms of like native trees and sizes and all that stuff, that's all in there?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't, no.
Like not specific recommendations for our situation yet, but just options.
That list is marked up, I didn't know whether or not they're native or exotic.
Okay.
But I would advocate for a palette of primarily native trees.
Awesome. Okay. With regard to the rubber and the grading around the trees, does the rubber or anything, any water running through that pose any kind of risk of groundwater?
No.
No, okay. And for the lighting, the gooseneck lighting, I don't know if Brian, you can answer this, for the gooseneck lighting, is that more, will that help with like sky darkening type of things and light pollution? The gooseneck with the round?
Yes, they don't, there's no uplighting from those at the top. They're a very, very nice, heavy-duty, long-lasting, expensive fixture. We're putting them on Lift Bridge Lane East. You'll see those going up when they finally come in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But they're similar to what we did on Lift Bridge Lane West. Different brand, but very similar style. And if we can do that, it's a very long corridor, as you can see, for this project zone. If we can do that and afford to do that, it's a very good fixture that provides great lighting, great capacity, great control over the lighting. So that is the intent, and maybe even possibly, depending on how purple electric goes, you can even dim them, change colors. There's some other options to do that. We were just talking before this. I mean, the project zone is massive. This isn't something that's very common. So when we talk about, you got a $5 million budget, you don't really have a big budget when it comes to something like this. So we the design team has been looking at just a plethora of different things, and we can add these ornamentals and really make it fun. We haven't talked about, what's that concrete going to look like, and what's that buffer zone that from the curb inward a foot or two. But I told them, I said, well, don't offer them brick pavers if you can't afford to do it throughout the corridor, right? Because if it's going to cost you $1 million for brick pavers, the option is, do you rather have concrete or no lighting, or would you rather have brick pavers, right? So it's just a big corridor. So we'll have to look at, what are some elements that, hey, if the bids come in great, and we can add these elements, fantastic, right? It's a really nice ornamental. If they come in and it's saying, hey, it's $1 million over budget, either you shrink the project zone or you take out an element that you can design around as well. So it's a really big corridor, and looking at the pricing, for Lift Bridge Lane East, that's $450,000 for kind of a mill and fill, minor excavation of some sidewalk ramps, redoing some sidewalks, and some lighting. That's a very expensive proposition for what we did over there, and they were the lowest bidder by $100,000, I think. So who knows where these are going to come in at and what's going on, but to the point that we can add these and add some landscape beds through here in different zones and make it really nice, I think it's going to go a long way. It's just a really, really large project corridor.
Last one, promise. Okay, now I know this is, the project is from the curb line to the road boundary, so that does not afford any space for potential bike lanes, or does it?
Yeah, so the project as it's been moving forward is part of the Transportation Alternatives Program, pedestrian and cyclist improvements. But this project is very pedestrian and streetscape aesthetic treatment focused. So in reality, looking at the options that are out here, there's not enough room for bike lanes in the roadway without removing parking, which has been identified as a concern for the village residents. And then within the curb to highway boundary area, Again, when the curb is narrower, you have a lot of room to work with, but as soon as you get through the heart of the village, you're down to 10 feet from curb to highway boundaries, 10 to 11 feet, which really isn't enough space to get pedestrians through there, let alone cyclists. So in that section, the travel lanes are fairly wide. You have 42 feet of pavement in the widest section, which is 8 foot for parking lanes and 14 foot for the travel lanes, which is a lot for a travel lane, which is enough space. It's a sufficient amount of space for shared use in the cyclists in the travel lane. So as part of the corridor, we really focused in on like that 10-foot area where we have 10 feet from the curb line to the highway boundary. Right now, the tree pits are 5 feet, the sidewalk is 5 feet, and talking with Dick and the opportunities for still installing trees through there, we're really trying to maximize the pedestrian access route through there. So we're narrowing the tree pits down to 4 feet, but we're lengthening the tree pits to essentially provide more surface area for rainwater than existing, but that widens the sidewalk to 6 feet. One of the objectives for this project is to make it more walkable. We do want to accommodate cyclists as best we can, but it really, as the project is set up, is in the street.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions. Appreciate you.
Back to the trees, what is our current spacing? Because you were talking about 50 feet apart when you were showing those 4 examples. What is our tree spacing now?
You know, I haven't studied that. It really feels like it's sort of haphazard. I didn't really observe a whole lot of regularity with regard to tree spacing and light post spacing. So the answer is it varies. There's no consistency that I observed.
But we'll be putting back more trees than we're taking out.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of tree pits that the tree died and they're empty, and sections where there's a lot of concrete that we can clear up and turn into green space. So it was pretty obvious to us there's a lot of opportunity to plant more trees than are existing now. The size of the trees that they are might even be planted closer than would really be advisable, which might be leading to the problems that Dick had identified with the health of trees and how the roots are growing and the limbs were growing into each other. So we want to take a really educated approach to the trees that get installed on the project and spacing with them. Also taking into account all the new lighting that we're going to be installing, designing for the corridor. So really just winds up being a whole cohesive picture. We have to look at a lot of elements.
Thank you.
More about the trees. Sorry. So you had shown different models with 50 feet apart, and there was like four different versions. With the widest spacing, you can obviously plant the largest tree, which gives us the greatest amount of shade and the largest canopy. Is that correct, or am I just assuming that?
No, I think that's a good assumption. But trees, depending on the species, they have different growing habits. Some are more columnar and some are more spreading. But as a general rule of thumb, the bigger the tree, the bigger the canopy.
Just because I'm an old-time resident and I love the look of the large canopy and eventually get back to that large canopy look with the white lights. In your opinion as landscape architect, would it be better to go with the tree spacing being 50, going with larger trees and eventually hoping for that canopy look again? Years down?
I would say it depends on the context. If restraints, like if the buildings are closer to the curb or there are lots of overhead wires, in some situations a smaller tree might be recommended. In that case, you would not space it at 50 feet apart. It'd be too far apart.
Okay.
So it all depends.
And then the smaller spacing would be, you these trees similar to like a serviceberry, which are a smaller type of.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
What else? I was really excited to hear that you had been looking closely at the pass row study, the parking study, and the vehicle traffic study that they invested in our community, so that was really encouraging, so thank you. That just prompted, though, a thought that I had, and forgive me if this is not, if this has nothing to do with what you can do. But there was a lot of conversation, and I know when Dave, Pass Row Associates presented that information, and there was conversation around looking at curbing and possibly with the cannery, discussion with the owner of the cannery, and changing curbing there so that it would maybe better incorporate one direction flow of traffic through their parking lot, and then if that were coordinated with the owner of the cannery, how that would then affect the curbing on Main Street, for the Main Street. Is that?
Yeah, I can get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, that, that driveway's been identified as a trouble spot. And not even just for like the in and out, just the fact that there are two driveways and they're just different layouts. The one of them clearly was one of the original driveways for that property, has the curb that comes at a radius and comes into the parking lot. It almost looks like a side street. And then the next driveway apron just north of that is your typical taper driveway where the sidewalk carries across the driveway, and it's confusing for pedestrians that are coming through there. So one of the objectives of this project is addressing the difference between those two driveways. So the driveway on the north side where the sidewalk carries across it is the preferred treatment. It gives pedestrians the priority, as it should, and limits the width of the driveway, just what's at the taper. So one of the easements that we acquired, that we're working on acquiring, is for the southern driveway with the radial curb return. What we want to do is shrink the size of that driveway to something that's more appropriate, and carry the sidewalk across the driveway and put in a tapered driveway apron. So once the project's complete, both driveways will look and operate the same. So from there, if there are plans to do single direction operations in and out, that would work out just fine. Honestly, it would be a really good operation with what we're proposing.
Okay. That sounds great. That's really great. You mentioned the right-of-way clearance, and how long and how months and months of work has gone into getting that clearance. How far away are we from that clearance?
So we had been tracking for right-of-way clearance in October. We ran into some delays on the New York State Department of Transportation end. We had gotten all the documents finished and signed, and they asked us to go back and revisit because they had identified some things that they had overlooked. So we're working through it now. It's in their hands. We submitted everything. We're waiting for final approval. So we're still tracking for the fall. Really, a lot of this is up to them. There is a legal process that needs to be followed, which is part of the reason why it takes so long. But to another extent, we're hoping that they can fast track a few things, whatever they have control over, pushing through faster.
I would imagine that the meeting that you have next week with the Merchants Association and the partnership will have, the content of that presentation will heavily be on disruption to businesses and what can be done to make it as easy as possible for businesses.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. the presentation to the Merchants Association, we're going to kind of build off of what we're talking today. The board, you guys have a firm knowledge in what this project is and the history of it. Some of the merchants, this might be new information to them. So we want to make sure that we're presenting more information on the backstory for the project and maybe less information on the funding source. That's not something that impacts them. So, yeah, we're going to modify it accordingly.
I can't believe that the Thomas Creek project is going to fall right before, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Even when we heard this news, we all thought the same thing, and even with respect to just logistics, you now have the project zone itself has been cut in half, right? So you're going around,
Yeah.
whether you're working on the north side, and you talk about materials, logistics, crews, how that all works, it just creates a whole other level of challenge. We expressed our comments to DOT when they came to us and elected not to move forward with the bids just due to costs, and saying, we kind of planned this project and other projects in the village that we were working on around that work being complete. It definitely created a logistical planning challenge, and I think it's going to throw a wrench in the process, but that work has to be done. They have the right to do it when they want to do it. They understand our position. We'll keep trying to collaborate on their work and what's going to do. We want to make sure that whatever they do, it's complementary to what we're doing, and that the design and the repair work and the reconstruction of that area all flows within the project zone.
Before hearing your presentation, I had Brian will tell you, and maybe board members, they've heard enough from Trustee Mishler about trees and how concerned I am about the removal of the trees. I literally lost sleep about it and was sick to my stomach when I heard that. But now hearing your presentation and seeing some of those pictures and really looking at that with a more critical eye, I really do understand the need to do it. So I feel a lot better about it, and I know that the board up here who has the vision to plant the trees today for the future is really the right decision. So I don't know if you were heavy on the tree conversation because maybe Brian prompted you to be. I think maybe that was a note. But I appreciate you spending so much time and being thorough explaining that, and I'm sure for our residents too, that's really, really helpful. So, and then I guess just one last thing. If we have an open house date set, I didn't see it in the presentation, but as soon as
Yeah, I'm hoping to schedule that.
support and
Yeah, I'm going to be working really closely with the village, not only to secure the location, but also to help with distributing information, social media, whatever information
the
we
town
can.
might not be big enough.
That's true.
Even
Yeah.
if we could do a couple of these or try some other sites, but as soon as we get these dates selected and what we're doing, we start marketing materials, getting the word out there, and getting excited about the hype and some of the fun stuff. Because these are the fun parts. Like to these guys' point, when they came in here, the stuff coming up to today, no one really cares about, right? That's what the engineers do, getting the project zone right. I mean, that's not the sexy part of the project. Stuff now is the aesthetics, things that you can see, touch, feel, kind of make it your own. That's the process that we're getting into now. We want to create some excitement around that and kind of see it. It's really going to change this community. I mean, if you were around the last 4 or 5 days of just beautiful sunshine, this village was booming, right? Walking everywhere, tons of fun, like people everywhere. I mean, it was fantastic. My parents have been in town for a week. We were in this village every single night. They loved it. We had a great time. So that's what we're trying to strive for. So we want to make sure when they're walking and enjoying this community, they're walking on something that's really cool and having some visual pleasure and so forth. It's gonna, I mean, just the basics of doing the streets. It's so old and it's so in need of repair. Just doing basic concrete replacement is going to be transformed, let alone everything else that they do and really make it fit in with what's going to happen. I'm excited about it. This is a long time in the making, decades in the making, and it's going to be a great project.
Sure is. Thank you so much for everything. Lots of hard work.
All right, so you got the planner last.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate all the time that's been going into this, and all the thought and looking down at it, and even drilling, you know, all the details and the options that are out there. I just want to make sure, you know, I mentioned like street trees and shade is going to be critical for the success of our main street. So I understand right tree, right place. But like thinking tree, no shade, you know, it's going to be tough to recreate a little bit of what we have here already. I'm curious to know, I want to take a little bit of a step back, because, you know, this is, you know, transportation alternatives, right? So, I'm curious, like, what other things you've been looking at? So one of the things, there are two things that kind of come to my mind. I know you already brought up bikes, so we've already kind of covered that, but we start looking at curb radii, right? The tighter those are, the slower people take going around the turn, which makes it safer for people who are crossing. We looked at that. Other things that kind of strike me as I walk around, you know, Main Street as well, is particularly as we're trying to, you know, accommodate multimodal approaches, for all the reasons that I'm sure we all know. Our bus stops, frankly, are deplorable. There's no bench in some cases. I've multiple times I've seen somebody just having to sit literally by the side of the road as traffic is going by, and no cover, no shade, no nothing between them and vehicular traffic passing by. If you had a chance to take a look at that and incorporate that or discuss that internally, because as, you know, also to your point too, as we've been seeing success, and people are, you know, some people might be trying to say, okay, fine, maybe it's tough to find parking this way. If I can find another way to get there, great. But if I have to stand out in the rain the whole time, I'm not gonna do it.
Yep. So we've identified the bus stops that are existing through the corridor, where they're located. Some of them seem like they're in a great spot, ideal location. Other ones seem like maybe not the most optimal location. As part of our utility coordination, one of the utilities is really going to be our RTS. So we're going to reach out to them and talk to them about bus stops that are through the corridor and opportunities for optimization. So there's some things that we can do as part of the project, no brainers. We can put some hardscape at the bus stop, provide a bench, a trash receptacle, and that's easy stuff that we can do as part of the project. Shelter, that gets into a more complicated discussion. Shelters are expensive, they're the maintenance responsibility of the transit authority, but that's a discussion that we'll want to talk to them about. If they have plans for that, you know, I've worked in other metro regions where the transit authority has a grant to install shelters, and they're looking for opportunities to put them out there. Maybe, but we haven't had that discussion yet with RTS.
Okay. Yeah, just like I said, you know, if this is a TAP grant, let's do TAP stuff.
Absolutely.
And then I think maybe I need to understand a little bit what it was design approval from DOT. I can't remember the term that you used. Since you know, this is probably maybe you. Maybe our first rodeo with the TAP grant going through. Some of it feels a little bit like we're asking people to come in and just say, do you want red paint or blue paint? The house is getting built this way and it's going to look this way. And somebody's going to say, well, yeah, but I'd like a powder room over here. And you're going to say, kind of, no powder room, would you like red paint or blue paint? Is that what that means? Or are there opportunities for if, let's just say, for whatever reason, people come out and they say, you know, I want bike lanes, I don't care about the parking. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion that's been happening out there, but let's just say that happened. What, do you have to go back to DOT and get reapproval?
Excellent question. So there are some basic components of the project that are just basic, and you can move forward. We can with having design approval, we have design of the basic design as it is, which is the functionality of the corridor. So, we can look at, crosswalk locations and decorative, lighting. The mid-block crosswalks, do we do rapid rectangular flashing beacons or not? And where do we locate the mid-block crossings? Those are all substantially the same project. It's just a modification of what we're proposing. Bike lanes would be a total overhaul. So if there was just a big push for, we want to eliminate parking and make space for bike lanes, we'd have to go back to the drawing board with NISDOT, and it would be a different project than what had been pushed forward. The TAP grant, there was an application that the village put in for the TAP grant. So it dates back to the design that was done back in 2015, 16, 17. So there was a design that was done as part of that project. And that was used as the basis for the TAP grant application. So as part of that original design, there weren't bike lanes in it. So the TAP grant was approved and issued based off of the application that had been sent in. It would be a big departure to go back to something at that point now. That would be a major change that would basically upend the project.
So, Trustee Radowski, you and I talked about this before. Technically, we own the street area. Outside of DOT not just letting us put bike lanes in, I think the village has significant discretion whether they want to offer parking on Main Street or not. Outside of that, it would be just redesigning the striping and so forth to accommodate that and show the flow of traffic and make sure like turning radiuses or, areas where you may have a left-hand turn lane or something has to be removed or something like that. But to Dave's point, it's not part of the TAP because you're not getting into the road by the grant, but these are things that still has some local control should the board feel to move forward with something like that. And they're very feasible, and again, a lot of pavers, you're still working within the roadways parameters. Those aren't ever going to change, right? So you're really just looking at the pavement, how you want to use said pavement.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to like sidetrack us with talks on bike lanes. Specifically, it was just more like, what, at this point now, what does the community have any influence on?
Yeah, which is a great question to ask, and that is what we're trying to put forward with the public outreach. We're really trying to identify things that can be influenced, things that there's choice over. There are some components of the project that are moving forward. We're replacing the ramps, we're installing a new sidewalk, the lighting's going in. The trees, as we've identified, a lot of them are in an unhealthy condition and won't be able to survive the construction, so we're going to be looking at a new tree palette. So there's components that we presented today. The zones within the corridor, the tree pits. So do we do the rubberized treatment? Do we do tree grates? Accent lighting, the interactive elements through the corridor, locations of benches, should there be bike racks over here or over there? These are all elements that absolutely the public has a say over. On its very basic element, we're installing new sidewalk, driveway apron changes, new street lighting and landscaping. So within that basic parameter, we have leeway to continue to refine the design as we move forward.
Part of the stuff that Dave and Steve are looking at, it's a big number, but they looked at, maybe part of the process to finish it all off was to repave Main Street, the project corridor. The problem is it's $750,000 plus. Plus, that would be a perfect time, should you repave the street, is to rethink how the street's used, whether it be parking on one side or both sides, or bike lanes, or whatever the board feels adequate to do. We've kind of moved from that because it's about $1 million all said and done, just to do paving work, which would take away your entire design budget and just doing some basic things within the project zone. And then also looking from a financial standpoint, if you do this whole project the way it is, remember, we're still on the hook for 20% match, which is close to that $1 million anyway. Adding another $1 million to do street work would be challenging. With budget and bonding and all the things that we're going to be looking at. Is it possible? 100%. The board could definitely choose to do that. And then look at, hey, what's the striping pattern associated with removing parking and putting in some bike lanes.
And actually, you got me thinking, too. Have we looked at any stormwater mitigation opportunities within some of like either the planting strips or sometimes you see them at like intersections or something like that too? Has that played into a factor? Now, something might just be like, that's piping, that's all the stuff Brian just got to do.
As it's described, green infrastructure is like a major design component. That wasn't part of the original grant application, so as it was, not to say that we couldn't pursue it, it is an acceptable treatment as long as it's to the benefit of the pedestrians and cyclists. So this is where I even have to like check myself, because the permissible uses and prohibited uses of the funds. Actually, I have to check myself to make sure that I'm providing good insight on this. Because storm drainage is one of those things that we can touch if there's an element of the corridor that's changing that's to the benefit of pedestrians and cyclists. So, like if we were going to be changing the curb line, doing curb extensions at certain locations, now that curb location is further out in the pavement, might be trapping stormwater. We can do stormwater mitigation because it's a downstream effect of an improvement to the pedestrians. Green infrastructure on its surface, I'd have to check. I was going to say like it is something that could potentially be included as part of the project. We haven't looked at it specifically, but now that I'm thinking about it more, I think that would actually fall outside of the permissible uses of the TAP grants themselves. There's always an option to do work within the corridor that isn't TAP grant fundable, but that requires an additional influx of dollars from the local sources. So it really depends on the money that you're using for the component of the project that you're advancing. So with the grant that was awarded to the village, you have to look at it through the lens of the TAP permissible and prohibited uses.
That makes sense. I think it covers just about everything there. Brian, Adam is just fine. Trust you. You can call me Adam. I think that covers about everything I got here.
Just wanted to ask Haley, I should remember that if she had any questions or wanted to add any final thoughts.
I do have a question. I first wanted to give my appreciation for all the hard work you've all done. I think everything looks and sounds amazing. You mentioned that you wanted to have the removal of a number of trees on Main Street. In regards to the trees that won't be replaced by healthier trees, do you have a plan to create some sort of structure to replace the shade that the previous trees provided?
No. Like we said earlier, our plan, and we feel very confident that this can be achieved, is that we'll install more trees than exist there today. So in time, there will be, as much or a greater amount of shade cast on the sidewalks. But as Adam pointed out, you can't restore that immediately. If we remove those honey locusts in front of Village Landing, we won't be able to recreate that canopy immediately. It'll take time.
Okay. That was wonderful. Board, nice job.
Should roll credits. It's been about 2 hours.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of your easement work and your right-of-way work and your railroad work. Sounds like you've got a lot of work to do with railroads.
Coordination.
So trustee Mr. We'll get all this stuff posted, start getting it out there, we'll get the dates set, so start advertising and getting some of the materials out and create a site for it and work with Island Planning for the rest of the other outreach and components so we can get the information where we need to be. And I'll forward all this to you tonight as well or tomorrow morning. That I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
We're we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna move on. Oh, okay. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, which is our Fairport Police Department discussion. And I see Chief Barnes patiently waiting. He's in attendance and ready to share some regular updates, right, Chief Barnes?
I am.
Okay.
My name is Matt Barnes. For people listening at home, I know you guys know me. I work with the Fairport Police Department. So part of our accreditation process here at the Fairport Police in New York State is something called continuity of operations. So continuity of operations calls for when I'm not here, whether something happens to me, I'm not going to be here forever, whether it's 2, 5, or 10 years, I'm not going to die in this position, so hopefully. So I'm going to turn this over to Sergeant Callan. He's going to present to you. I'll be in the back of the room if you guys have any questions. But that's where we're going to go with this evening. I think you'll find it interesting. Okay? Sound good, Sergeant
I
Callan?
love this as a teacher. I'm all over this. This is great. Good stuff.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to take this opportunity to talk to the board and provide these updates from the police department and what's going on. Obviously, Chief Barnes is here, so if I screw this up, I'm sure he'll step in and take over for me. As many as you know, we had an officer injured last year. It was in the beginning of December. And now going into June, the officer is now returned on light duty, so he did have surgery, he is making progress, wants to come back to work, and obviously you guys know it is a long process because we're coming up on 6 months here. So going through that just to familiarize everybody with that case, that was an individual who was kicked out of a bar, he was refusing to leave the bar, and when the officer got there, that subject then turned his violence, instead of on the staff patrons there, on the officer, and when he was effecting the arrest, he torn his ACL and had a long road to recovery. But he is doing better now, like I said, we're looking forward to having him back on the road and working with us more. One of the things that we're working on right now is looking into new hires. So that's something where the ideal hire would be somebody that's a lateral transfer, that's somebody that's obviously on the job somewhere, and then somebody that has transferred from another agency to our agency. We typically do this really just for continuity of services. The way it is, I know for myself going to the police academy, it really is an investment into an officer, and that it's a long road, it's a 5 to 6 month academy, and there's a lot of variables in hiring, a new officer compared to somebody that transfers from somewhere that already has a proven track record. So right now, we're looking for an officer, and an ideal candidate would be somebody that's traffic-minded, somebody that has their BTO certification, that's their breath test operator certification. So when somebody's arrested for DWI, we put them through the breath test, that's a certification that somebody would have from the state to do that test. Also an officer that has radar and LiDAR certifications. Those are certifications, once again, from the state, so you can actually use the radar unit and the LiDAR units to write speeding tickets and such from there. So we are having a difficult time right now actually finding that person and identifying them. I know some of the problems are just really kind of county-wide, area-wide, with just officers not getting into police work like they used to. I know for myself, I graduated college. It took me 3.5, almost 4 years to get a job in law enforcement. I took literally every single service test that I could take, and it took a good 3.5 years until I got hired. It doesn't seem that that's really the case anymore because, like I said, there's just not really the officers that there used to be when I was looking that are coming through and looking for this type of career, unfortunately. Some other areas, they have had incentives, to keep officers, so it is difficult to attracting officers to leave, their current agencies and come to another agency. It's that for the unknown, because I did it myself almost 9 years ago. You don't really know if things are going to be better or how they are, but I would never change the way that I did anything, and I'm very glad that I transferred myself 9 years ago, and here I am. One of the things to talk about is grant. We received a $50,000 grant that we used for the purchase of our Taser 10s. So those are the new Taser system that we had. Officer Dinan was instrumental in securing that $50,000 grant. That was a grant that was allocated to us to use, so it would save the village that money, because originally that money was, I believe, from the general fund or from the budgeted money, so it did save village residents that $50,000 for that. We did have training on that, so now all the officers are certified with these new tasers that we are carrying. Everybody else too just attended a countywide in-service training that was comprised of EVOC, which is Emergency Vehicle Operation Course. Basically, high speed and low speed type things. They set up cones. It's actually one of the funner, trainings that we get to go to. And also part of that training was legal updates. So that was something that, like I said, everybody in the department is now trained on and a little more familiar with, emergency vehicle operations and legal updates. A lot of that too was bail reform and kind of ways to charge individuals that don't show up to court. They're actually saying now that there's a way to charge them with basically skipping out on that. And then there's certain steps that we have to go through for law enforcement, but they did give us a pretty good framework to go through that and actually charge people that don't show up for court, when we have those issues, which is a real issue that we deal with too in the village, and issue people appearance tickets and they don't show up for court, and now we can actually make arrests from that, given certain steps that we have to follow to go through there. We also received a grant for $20,000, and we're going to be looking for traffic safety related to purchase things from that. So in the time I've been here, the radars have been here long before I came here. I know we're going to be looking at possibly new radar units and a new LiDAR unit. So radar is basically the one that is in the police car, where it sends out the radio signals, and an officer has to know the difference between a vehicle that's approaching and going away, and using that radar system to get the speed of the vehicle that we want. A LiDAR system is specific, so that's something where you see the laser gun, and the officer can use that and pinpoint any vehicle they want. You point it at the license plate, hit the button, hit the trigger, and it tells you exactly what that speed's going. So I believe we used to have one of those, but we actually don't have a laser LiDAR unit anymore, so that's something that we're definitely looking into, to use that for traffic enforcement. With Canal Days coming up, we're also going to be borrowing barriers. The barriers that, when Chief and I went to a Chief conference last year, the barriers we were looking at before, I believe, were almost $45,000, a piece to move these, and they're huge, and they require a lot of movement around and the expense to them. And obviously, you go blocking off a couple streets, you could be $45,000, $90,000 just in these barricades that we're using. And so we're actually picking a couple of them up tomorrow to use them for Canal Days and for the events that we have. So once again, be saving money and borrowing them from areas to use for our public safety needs. We did just partner with the state police, and last week we did a commercial vehicle enforcement, where I know numerous citations were issued during that time. I think actually one of the local companies that's working down here on Liftbridge Lane on part of the project might have been ones that were cited during that detail. We have in the past done crosswalk details, and I know that's something. So we're going to be. We're also going to be doing crosswalk details. We have done those in the past. We have used interns to walk, in the crosswalk and see if somebody doesn't stop for them, and then we can, obviously write a ticket for violations that we see. A lot of the time with that, people don't realize that you can't actually enter the crosswalk until it's safe to do so. So that's why it's great to have those lights there, because it brings people's attention, so they slow down and they stop. And really, the traffic going north and southbound has the right of way until that person's actually in the crosswalk. But like I said, they can't enter that crosswalk until it's safe to do so. So with those lights, it does help to get people's attention, get them slowing down. And then, I see people all the time, waiting for a crosswalk, and I'll stop and be nice and let them cross. But it's just one of those things that we want to work on enforcement more, and we plan on doing that probably after Canal Days, and really setting that up more and using that. We still use the speed signs. The speed signs are providing similar data that they provided before. I believe the average speed on West Church Street is about 33 miles an hour. The average speed on East Church Street is about 34 miles per hour. And the average speed on South Main Street coming into the village is about 37 miles per hour. I know typically that one's a little higher because we all know that it has the hill coming down into the village. So we're still using that. We had an intern that was also with us, and the intern went out with the radar unit, like I know one of the board members has done here, and other people in the audience have done, and to see kind of the numbers that we see, and her numbers really match what we see on the data that we get back from those fixed radar units that are on the side of the road. Like to add on a positive note, Officer Dinan, who was in here. So he was nominated. Is he here somewhere? Oh, there he is. He was nominated for News Channel 8 as a first responder spotlight. So they actually came out, they interviewed him from an incident from last year when he saved a mail that was stuck on his roof. And so Officer Dinan rescued this gentleman off of his roof. And then instead of the job being over, Officer Dinan then took the gentleman's leaf blower and continued to blow off all the leaves off of his roof and out of his gutter. And the gentleman and his wife were extremely appreciative that he was nominated because of his going well and above the call for duty, not only rescuing the mail from the roost, but then finishing his chores. So very, very nice of Officer Dinan to do it. It's good to have something like that shown, show the positive work that we do as police and that he does as an officer. He's doing a great job. As we know, the chief has his podcast. He's continually working on that and getting new people there to interview. We're still in contact with the broken bottles and trying to get them to do the actual soundtrack for the beginning of that. I think they're actually going to have a recording pretty soon, so hopefully that gets done. And then the intro to the podcast will be something from a local band. The Broken Bottles is a local Fairport band. Yes, my son is in that band.
And my daughter. In the meantime, we can use Scooby-Doo.
Right. As you know, we finished Memorial Day parade yesterday. That was a success. It was obviously very rainy. I was one of the lucky ones that was able to ride in the police car leading it, so I can't complain really too much for Chief and numerous officers, the undersheriff, I believe, were out there walking in the rain and showing. Everybody was. But that was it was a good. We had a great showing of people. There were very minor issues. I think we had one issue before that we handled. And other than that, there was very, very little issues associated with that. And as you know, we're working right now to prepare for Canal Days. It's coming up this weekend. And we're working with our partnership with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, the New York State Police, and other agencies, just getting ready for that and making sure everybody's going to be safe. Takes a lot. The chief can definitely speak to that a lot better, but I know that there are numerous meetings, countless meetings that he's been going to for that, and it's just continual discussions with our partners and seeing who can help us, with their, and without getting into details of. Sure.
So this preparation, it starts almost immediately after Canal Days for the following year. We start with an after-action review, what went right, what went wrong, how can we fix it, how can we better improve or harden our defenses. That's led up to the majority of work that's happened in the last 4 months. Not only meeting today, I apologize for my attire, conducting business in front of you, but I've been with tactical teams all day since this morning. So we've been in and around the village doing numerous things, but we coordinate with 5 or 6 different police agencies here locally. We coordinate with 2 different agencies federally, and it's a ton of work. It is a ton of work. When the Canal Days actually starts, that's the easy part. Starting Friday night, as long as everything goes right between Friday and Sunday. Sunday night we sleep well, right? But if stuff didn't go right from Friday night to Sunday, we're questioning on everything. We're questioning from the feds and the state. There's certain parameters now the state has in place. Anything over 5,000 people requires a permit through the EMS side of things, I have to write a letter for them, get a permit for this. So that starts, like I said, immediately. There is so much preparation that goes into this. So many different minute and minutia that needs to be attended to, and we do that, but we only do it through help with our partners. We can't take all the credit, all our guys are on, but a lot of guys, a lot of agencies put forth a lot of personnel for this. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, not only in overtime, but in personnel and equipment. So we like to believe we do it right. We're not bragging. Obviously, it's based on success from 47 years before, right? I've been here now 20-something years, decades, as Brian says, but I've seen a lot of my predecessors do the instant action plans, the ops plans. I know what works and what doesn't, right? We try to project what's going to work, and we do that. Did we make changes this year? Yes, we did. One of them, Ryan mentioned, we're borrowing those HVMs, those high visibility mobile barriers from DHS, from the Department of Homeland Security. Those are about $45,000 a street end, so it's $90,000 a street end. We're not paying that. We're the first ever to borrow them. When I called DHS out of Buffalo, they said, "You want to borrow them?" I said, "I do." I said, "You guys loan them out?" They said, "We've never loaned them out before. We just got them. We don't even know how to use them." I said, "Actually, I know how to use them because Ryan and I went to a conference and we sought out the vendors that sell this item, and we went over with 3 different vendors with them, and that's just what we needed on the ends. If you guys haven't noticed, it's one of our major concerns here at Canal Days is having an errant driver or someone with deadly behavior that wants to injure or project violence on people coming down Main Street with a car. So that's why we always have cars at the end and barriers and stuff like that. Everything we do here is for a reason. So just a little, and I don't want to get into it. Brian knows a little bit more than you guys do. There's a lot of tactical and tactics used here for the next couple of days that we're not going to divulge for that reason. So, but there is a lot of thought and process that goes into this. Not just me, numerous agencies. Far smarter people than me. So we'd like to believe we get it right. We'll see come Sunday night. All right? Sorry, Ryan.
Just to finish up here, just let you know a couple other things. There's a, Chief's in early talks right now for permanent LPRs, those are license plate readers. Those are about $25,000 a piece, and that's something that hopefully we'll get through the county. So those will actually be at fixed, locations somewhere.
So Ryan wasn't supposed to mention it because Ryan does not know about that yet, but that is a future line item that Brian and I will be talking about here in the near future. We may have a chance to get these at a reduced rate, if not, I'm not going to say free, but definitely at a heavy reduced rate. We set them on our cars. They get outdated. Software gets updated, so they're no longer on our cars. About $20,000 to $25,000 a piece. But I have been working over the last couple of months. I even have a proposed locations and so on and so forth. So it's not just me, it's the 12 agencies in Rochester. We all kind of submitted grant money and funding for this. And we did it as a co-op. As many agencies, we went in as one. So that's where they're coming from. And Brian, like I said, you and I will be having talks on that. Thank you, Brian.
And with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And please, questions.
A couple times you explained we had an intern do that. What's that?
An intern? So
Do we have an intern?
So we did have an intern. We've had a few interns.
Okay.
I know what I've done in the past, we actually had somebody from the Boy Scouts that did it, and he was verifying same thing with the speeds, and we actually had him use the radar gun and do it. And same thing with the intern is we give her some basic instructions about the radar units and how to use them, and then it's her actually using that radar and basically pointing it at cars to see what the speeds are to do them. So when I with the Boy Scout that was here, he did it. It was in and out of the car because they can be taken out of the car. But as far as that's pretty much it. We have them use it almost the same way that we would do to try and verify the speeds that we're getting on those radars coming into the village.
I just didn't know we had interns.
We've had a couple. We did have one this past semester, I believe, from MCC. She was from.
And we had an intern start in Village Hall today, actually. It was her first day, Brent Watt. So So she'll be coming to future meetings. I didn't tell her we had a meeting tonight, and forgot to do that, otherwise she'd be here, but you'll see her at future meetings moving forward throughout the summer.
But yeah, we've had numerous, in the almost 9 years I've been here, there's been numerous interns on and off over years, for sure.
It's like kind of like student teacher or something. I just had never thought of it that way. But
Yeah, I remember when I went to college, I was an intern. I did one for probation. I did one, it was Ontario County probation, or actually, no, it was Livingston County probation, because I went to Geneseo, so it was Livingston County probation. I did that, and I also did one with the state police. And then basically, a lot of the time, it's ride-alongs and doing just individual tasks that they, ask you to do. But definitely gets you into the, into the mode of what the career might be that you're looking into.
Did they pay you?
No,
Yes.
it was not paid.
I had three in school, and I was not paid in either of them. Nowadays, they expect pay. I don't know.
no, we didn't get paid to.
No, I did not. I did not.
Officer Callan, I'm just going to ask the board of other board members if we have questions. More questions, comments?
No questions, but thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just want to say, again, thank you for, all the work that you do, particularly, wanted to, say thanks for all the work that you did with the parade yesterday, and, as Chief was mentioning, all the prep work that goes in. I did see the Channel 8 article there too, so I think that was fantastic that we had somebody from our department. There we go, there he is. Highlighted. It was just a great opportunity for people to just to see the stuff that, for you all is just every day, but get to highlight that.
Right.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. How are we doing with cell coverage during these festivals? I know that's in the past has been a huge.
That has in the past, as far as this, I'm not specifically aware of. I asked Chief if he knows more about this one.
So we had cows, when I say cows, just an acronym for Cell on Wheels, right, COW. Come into town, we put two of them up, I believe, over outside of the DPW off of Railroad Street. So that helps the Verizon network. They did it at the PGA too, it helped a little bit. Problem is, the amount of people on that network, it's not necessarily Verizon versus AT&T, one is better than the other. It's not that, it's the immense amount of people that are on the Verizon network. That's why it goes down, and that's why AT&T FirstNet is usually still up during these festivals. So I think you'll probably see that. The cows or the Cell on Wheels will help, I think, a little bit. I don't know how much, I'll let you know. At PGA, I talked to the guys who ran PGA, they had them at that location, had numerous ones. They help a little bit.
Are
The
those
good
also
thing,
coming from your budget, or are
they're not. Nope.
coming from our budget?
If Verizon put them up, they're now by Public Works. You can see them clear as day, go look across. And then they're going to take it down as soon as the event's over, and then put them back up for future events, maybe like an Oktoberfest or events where we have music festival, those types of things. They're doing that on their own accord to provide better service for their.
Yeah, it doesn't cost time. So that's one of those things in the after-action review that we do, come next week, we'll do that AAR. That was one of the things we try to identify, obviously, needs, wants, obviously harden our defenses, as I call it, right, it's military language, but that was one of the things, Brian made that happen.
Love that.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian. I love the crosswalk detail idea.
We've done it in the past, done it for years. Problem is getting the intern to step out into traffic. You know what I mean? You don't want to harm someone, but that's what, in essence, what we're doing, right? And so that's a kind of a funny detail, but we try to do it, and it raises awareness. If you do it, a couple dozen times, people coming down the street, they notice.
We know from speed data that West Church is slower than Main, especially South Main. How are we patrolling that area different than West Church so that those speeds come down too, if at all?
Yeah, so, Brandon and I talked about the sign on South Main, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
And it is due to the hill. You can watch yourself come down to the hill, and then you come up the hill, you think it would have a negative reaction, but it just doesn't seem to. Those speeds have maintained consistency for a year and a half. You can go back, literally subsets of well over 1 million or 2 million cars. The amount of cars in the last 4 months that have gone through there, I think it's like 1.5 million cars for West Church, East Church, and South Main combined. Now, some of that is repetitive traffic, right? Some people are going to come east on West Church Street, hang right on Main Street, and go down South Main Street Hill. So that same car is getting picked up on two different things, so it's not different cars. But it's still, that subset is huge. That number is absolutely insane if you think about it. I tell some of my cohorts that, during our monthly meetings at Lake Barnes, there's no way you have that many cars in the village. I said, yeah, we do have that many cars in the village. So the amount of traffic in the village, as you guys know, being here, representing here, growing up here, it's a large amount of traffic.
Yeah.
But another metric we use is MVAs, motor vehicle accidents, 104s, right? We usually had, several years ago, we had close to 300 MVAs, 250 to 300. I think last year we had 130 to 150. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but it's somewhere in that range, 130-ish, 140-ish, something like that. This year to date, now the first 4 months or through first 5 months, because we're almost through May, I think there's 46. So that's another metric we use, right? There's less accidents at this point than there were last year. Explain that. I don't know. Sometimes you fall on the right side, sometimes you fall on the left side, right? But that's the number.
Keep an eye, I mean, I know you know this, but I'm just put a reminder out there. Keep an eye on Halbert, those.
I know.
Halbert, I mean, I've been out there talking to residents not that far, not that long ago, and those residents are really concerned about that being cut through as it is, right? And the speeds on that street, they just kind of zip through. And then maybe the board, in collaboration with you, need to talk about maybe other things that we can do to make that street a little bit safer.
We have a mobile speed sign too currently, it's on High Street. The problem with the mobile speed sign only lasts for like 72 hours. So we bring it and recharge it, we put it up on Halbert too to see what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And as you know, because you rode in our car with the radar gun,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And we gave you an opportunity to point whatever you wanted.
Yeah, everyone should do it.
I think they should, but when you're sitting there with a blue and white marked police vehicle, people react differently. They just do, and that's good, and that's what we want, right? It'd be very concerning if they didn't react differently, but, so that's a good thing, but yes, we can keep track of that. Because I know Halbert's been a concern of yours.
And
No, it has, right?
Yes.
I know you're in tune with the
I just
neighborhood.
keep hearing it.
I know.
Two really positive things. You have an officer retiring, so I hope to hear
We do.
when the celebrations are going to start on that.
Yeah, we do. So, and honestly, he's going to be hard to fill. Joe brings an immense amount of good things to this job. As you get older in your career and you get, I guess, a little salty, there's some bad things, but Joe has a heart of gold. And
He did tell me at the parade it was his last parade.
it is. It's his last parade. Trust me, I believe those words. But that's part of what Ryan spoke of. That recruitment effort is tough right now, you guys. It's extremely tough right now. We got several people with their resumes and stuff like that, and just finding that right person.
And the last thing you didn't mention, you guys did a preschool. You had a preschool, right? A group of preschoolers that came
We did. We put that on our Instagram. Preschool came through together. We're very excited to do that. Yep.
Nice job.
Yep. We try to do that. That's obviously our bread and butter, right?
Yeah,
So.
you guys are doing good work.
We have all the fourth graders coming, with first graders coming next month.
Yep.
From Brooksville. You don't know about that yet? Oh, you will. Because you got volunteered already.
Is that your son's class?
Yeah, my son's coming too. So all the Brooksville's first grades coming to Fairport, and then we'll walk up, and we gotta.
Yeah.
I love this.
And guys, this year, as far as like arrests, right, we failed to talk about arrests. We are police. I know it's a bad subject, but it's been extremely busy. We've had probably 20 or so arrests already the first 4 months of this year. Penal arrests, we've had another 20 to 25 MHTs, which is mental health arrests, which are very concerning.
Is it a repeating person, though?
One has been arrested a couple times, but the majority of them are different. So it is concerning, but that's the life we live no matter where you live, right? That's today's society, so. It's been busy. It's been very, very busy. And the nightlife around here, as you guys know, it's crazy. So,
I'm in bed.
a lot of people are not. But yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Anyone else? I think that might conclude the police review.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Emily, if you want, we can do the executive session another time. There's nothing real important. It's 8:30 already if you want. It's nothing big. We can hold off
That would be great.
2 weeks or something.
Because it's getting really late.
You guys want to be talking for another half an hour anyway. Not a big deal.
So everyone okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. So then, that brings us to our upcoming village board meetings. We have one, Monday, June 10th at 6 p.m. This is a board meeting, and then we have another one, Monday, June 24th at 6 p.m. This is a work session. I think that concludes.
Good holidays.
Good holidays, yes,
Have fun. Be safe.
absolutely. All right.
Almost.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Trustee Wyka.
Second.
Oh, go. Go.
Second, trustee Briggs.
Okay. On that, the motion carries. We're done.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, all in favor, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So guys, just so you know, the guy who fouled me out, the older gentleman here, said he just moved to town. I don't know if you guys you know him. He just moved from Atlanta. And he said you guys have a heck of a community. Born and raised down south. He said his daughter moved up here, and his wife passed a few months back. So his daughter had him come up after whatever. So he just moved here. He said this is awesome. He goes, I'm really, really impressed. He just literally said that. So I don't know. I said stop in the police department. We'll take a walk, and I'll tell you about the town. He said I will. So. Yeah.
He has an older guy, Richard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for letting Ryan present. It's just important, literally, to develop your subordinates. It just is, guys. He's got 17 years in the job. He doesn't do that. It's just, and that's part of the hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
You have to do it.
That makes my heart full and happy to see that. I love that.
So, Anna, have you done capital?
And Megan, you threw me way off when I came up and you were up there. So used to sitting there. Don't do that again, for God's sake.
We're keeping you on your toes.
What do you need? You need to carry it down or anything?
Have a great night, John.
Looks like a laser cut.
Oh, it is. Does anyone want,
John.
Oh, yeah.
Starting Christine's replacement started today.
what release?
Yeah, because that was one of the things.
Replacing Christine started today.
Oh, yeah.
Next month will be this guy.
Oh, did it? Oh, wait, so seriously? Oh,
no, but you said like a few weeks ago, it was like with Steve and, yeah, that was.
Because I do work for
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, because I definitely didn't.
Overwhelmed, I'm just like,
Who would that be? I was like, well, I mean,
we'll get to the right.
well, that was one of the things.
Really?
That's a conflict of interest. You know, you want to make sure you avoid even the appearance of it.
I do very much try to stay out of it. That's too cold. Get ready for the trips. It's an appearance of it. Because you want to have integrity and control over,
so more than 30 days, you technically have to resign, so you apply for your job, and I'm like, can you do this guarantee that I'll get my pay?
yes.
If it even,
Pretty conservative.
right? It's one of the,
That is the
So they're gonna lose a couple employees. Even if I'm not even the board's attorney, because there's sometimes where I'm just like one board and I don't really zoning, like I'm just like.
That's my plan.
But even then,
Whole time to be there.
because you don't want.
Because something always comes up.
It's not me that's gonna get it.
Yeah, yes, just go.
And I don't wanna put anyone in that
Yep.
position, so I'm.
could ultimately just end up. Not even worth it.
The way the landscape is now, I think it's.
That's so impressive.
Serious.